Hey fishies, how you doing today? Well, not so good. Having a really hard time learning how to tank. Hmm. Well, luckily, I think I can help you with that. This is Gizmo at Gizmo Mogwai Gaming, and this is a small little guide to help new beginning tanks to get custom with their abilities and how to control hate in their party. So strap on your tanking gear, and let's go dive in. So one of the first things that I've noticed running some of the dungeons nowadays with a big influx of new players is they're going around hitting each mob with single target skills. Now in some previous games that you might have played, that might have been the way to tank, but in Final Fantasy XIV tanks have AoEs, and as long as you have your tank stance on, you're going to build hate with whatever skill you're using on a mob. So that's why all the tanks have an AoE by level 10. Now Dark Knight's first AoE that they get is called Unleash, and it's a circular AoE. As a side note, 3 of the 4 tanks start out with a circular AoE as their first AoE. Roughly, wherever that animation is, the mobs in that animation are going to get hit. Now we will demonstrate the Paladin's skill. Now with Paladins, it's the same kind of deal. It's called Total Eclipse, and it's a circular AoE around yourself. And it'll hit everything that it touches. Next we will demonstrate the Gunbreaker. Now their AoE is Demon Slice at level 10. Demon Slice is the same as the other 2 previous tanks where it's a circular AoE. All very simple, easy to use while you're learning how to tank. Now as I said previously, 3 of the 4 tanks are simple with their AoEs. It's a circular AoE around the target, or around yourself. The 4th tank, Warrior, is different. Overpower is a conal frontal AoE instead of a circular AoE. So you have to be a little more cautious with how you're using it to be able to clip everything. Still does the same amount as far as enmity generation though. Next we will talk about tank stances. You need to have these on if you're doing a 4-man dungeon. Now for Warrior, that skill is called Defiance. And, it does the same thing as all the other tanks. Now with Gunbreakers, it is called Royal Guard. The Paladin is called Iron Will. And last but not least, Dark Knight is called Grit. Now if you're going to be doing 4-man content, or perhaps even 8-man content, depending on what you're doing, you need to have this on so that you're controlling hate, so that the monsters are hitting you and not your party. Next I want to talk about the range attacks. Every job has one of these at level 15. Dark Knight's is called Unmend. Ranged attacks are very useful when you have to hit something that's far away or a new ad pops up and you want to get hate on it first before the rest of your party does. Or at least get enough hate on it so it comes to you and doesn't attack your healers or your DPS. Now next we will demonstrate Paladins, and that skill is called Shield Lob. Now, all of these function the same. There's no difference as far as what they do. It's just animation differences. So Paladin just throws a shield at the enemies. Pretty simple. Next we will go with the Gunbreaker and their Lightning Shot. And just as it sounds, you're shooting something at the target. As I said before with the other 2, it's just your ranged attack. Every range attack has the little subtext in the tooltip that says increase enmity. And lastly, we will go with Warrior. Now, Warrior's ranged attack is called Tomahawk. And as the name implies, you throw a tomahawk. And I just want to show the range attack tooltip there. And it's very useful to read all of your tooltips as you get them, or just when you're starting a new class. That shows what it says in there and what it actually does. Now next I want to talk about your roll abilities. Now these are abilities that every tank will get no matter what tank you are. The first one is Rampart. Pretty simple, reduces damage by 20%, lasts for 20 seconds, has a 90-second recast. I would use this ability when you are pulling a couple different packs of mobs, or you're fighting a boss and it's got a big tank buster coming. The next ability is called Low Blow, and this is a stun. A single target stun that does it for 5 seconds. Every tank gets this, but on a side note, paladins actually get their own personal stun, and it's called Shield Bash, which is a 6-second stun, so you can kind of weave those in between if you need to. And because paladin has that as a skill, they can actually hit multiple targets with theirs. Just keep switching the skills or the target and you can bash them. Now the next one is called Provoke, and this is a very important ability, especially if you're going to be going into like 8-man content with another tank. Now this lets you provoke the mob and you become the top #1 person with hate on the mob. This doesn't last unless you continue to hit the mob and you do skills and weapon skills into that mob. Now this is very important if you're trying to do some kind of tank swapping as well. Now the next skill is called Interject, and this does what it says, interrupts the use of a target's action. This could be some kind of a skill that the monster's doing, or it could be a spell. It's really useful when you see it happening. The way to tell is the monster's cast bar will be flashing kind of red, and if it does that, that means that you can use Interject and you can cancel their skill, so they won't be able to use it. Really useful in all kinds of content. Usually you see it with monsters that are casting some kind of spell or some kind of skill. The next skill is Reprisal, and this is a nice defensive skill, and it's an AoE around you, and it reduces the damage of all nearby enemies by 10%, and it lasts for 10 seconds. And it's a very useful skill to just lower the damage that you're receiving. The next skill is Arm's Length, which creates a barrier, nullifying knockbacks and draw-in effects. But for tanks, it's really useful because if you have this up and enemies are hitting you, they can get a slow debuff on them, which is a great defensive cooldown because it's a 20% slow, which means they're not hitting you just as much. Healers love this skill when you use it because when the enemies get this debuff on them, it lets them do a little more DPS if they want to. Really, really, really cannot stress how useful this skill is. Lots of people don't even know that it has that extra additional effect. Now last but not least is the skill Shirk. Now what this does is it gives some of your enmity, 25% to be exact, and you can give that to another party member. Now this is more of an advanced roll skill. This is more for like 8-man content when there's a second tank and you're trying to do a tank swap. Now the best way to do that is the other tank will provoke, and after they provoke you use Shirk on the other tank, and then they have full hate and you're #2 on the hate list at that point. It's really not something you need to know about in 4-man content, but when you start doing any of the trials or you start doing Savage, or if you're really going to try hard, do some ultimates, you need to know how to tank swap, and Shirk helps with that. Now the last thing I want to say is when you are starting to tank and you start gathering all your mobs, you want to try to sit in one spot. You do want to try to avoid the AoEs that the mobs are throwing out, because that'll help your healers, that'll help you stay alive. But for the most part, you want the mobs to stand still. Don't move around with them once you've got the hate, because what you're doing is you're letting all your party members get their AoE skills on the mobs. You're also letting them get their positionals if they have positionals on the job they're playing. It's all very important things that you need to do. So hopefully with those tips, you went from being a small little guppy in the pool to the big alpha fish in the pond. Now this has been Gizmo Mogwai with Gizmo Mogwai Gaming on YouTube. And my Twitch handle is twitch.tv/GizmoMogwai1027. I hope you found this guide to be helpful, especially for you new beginner tanks. Don't be afraid. Everybody had to start out first. All it's going to take is for you to put your best foot forward and continue trying. Good luck. Remember, stay hydrated and have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye!